All right, we're in the shop. I've got new glasses. I've got the crispiest of DDPs here. Today I went with the Spider-Man cut from the movie Spider-Man. So I'm excited to get some stuff done. Let's talk about what we're going to do. We finished the drawer boxes last time. This time we're going to work on the drawer fronts and doors for our mudroom cabinets. They're all pretty much all going to be the same shaker style construction. You'll have the rail and style and then a center panel here. However, for these top drawers, there's one here and back there. I think it's just going to be too small. The center panel would be too small and it would just look weird. So we're going to do a slab style door for this, which just basically means solid walnut. We're also going for a full overlay look, which just means that the drawer fronts will extend beyond here and cover most of the cabinet. There'll only be a 1/16 of an inch visible. It's called a reveal. So when two cabinets are butted up against each other, you double that to have an 1/8 of an inch between all the doors and drawer fronts, which is a little nerve-wracking because you have to be very precise. That's not a lot of room for error. So yeah, we're gonna mill up some walnut lumber to be able to make that. So come hang out. Let's see what we can get done. All right, so let's grab some walnut. Let's cut it down to a more manageable size. Milling is pretty simple. It's just taking raw lumber and turning it into something I can use. It needs a flat face, a flat edge, and those things need to be square to each other so that I can work with it. My jointer is a little small, so I'm going to need to cut it down here and then cut it down at the table saw. So let's go over there. I have a 6-inch jointer, so we got to cut this down to 6 inches. So let's get oh, actually, you know what? This is a plywood blade. I need something for raw lumber. So let's switch that out. This is the stuff that pops up that makes everything take longer than I want it to. So, but that's okay. We'll get this switched out and then we'll be ready to go. So let's go ahead and line this up, make sure it's tall enough. And we'll get the, oh, actually, you know what? I forgot the dust collection. Got to get that. That's important. And now we're ready to make a cut. Oh, actually, got to get my push stick. Okay, now we're cutting. This is not going to be straight or anything like that. There's no straight edge on this lumber, so this is not a final cut. This is just to get it to fit on my jointer. So let's clean these up here. Get these out of here. So now we'll head over to the jointer. This just makes things flat. So I want to flatten the face first. So I'll push it through this cutter head, and as I do that, it basically just takes off any material that makes it not flat. It makes it as flat as possible to the left side of this tool, so it'll come out flat. You can see it's actually getting hard to push because it's so flat it's suction cupping kind of to the left side of this tool. So we'll go ahead and mark this, and next we'll do an edge, and we'll make sure that this edge is square to that face we just did. And you can see here I zoomed in so you can see it kind of that cutter head taking off material. So we'll mark that edge as well, and then we'll head over to the planer. Now I obviously have to show off my little flip card I made for my sander and my planer. But anyways, the jointer gave us two edges, a face and an edge, that are flat and square to each other. The planer doesn't make things flat, but it does make two sides parallel to each other. So we'll take the flat face that we made on the jointer and we'll make the other side flat as well. The planer also helps me get the wood to the right thickness. So I need this to be 3/4. So you can see here it's more than 3/4. So we'll need to get that down. So I'm going to feed this wood through little by little, making sure that I don't lower it too much, because if I lower it too much, then it's going to be less than 3/4, and that's going to be obviously an unusable piece of wood if I do that. So I got to be very careful here. And I also need to make sure that I take off enough material to take care of any low spots so that I make sure that it is flat. So let's just take it real nice. Oh crap, it's too small. I'm just realizing it's too small. I messed up. All right, well, let's raise it back up. Let's try again, and we'll never speak of this again, okay? Okay, sounds great. So we're now adjusting it more. We're obviously going to have to throw that board away that I made too small, but that's okay, as it happens. And there we go, 3/4, exactly where we want it, so that's good. And now that it's set to 3/4, I can run the rest of the boards in. So now we'll go back to the table saw for our final cut. We've got 3 sides that are all flat and parallel to each other, and then we're just ripping off that last 4th edge. So now we have beautiful 4-sided, all square, all flat lumber. Now if I were to just take this wood and put it on the drawer front, it'd be a lot more prone to warping and cupping and stuff like that. I don't want that to happen. So I'm going to rip these down to 2.5-inch strips so that then I can glue up a panel. And I chose 2.5-inch strips because that's what the rails and stiles are going to be. So I thought it would kind of mimic that look, I guess. So let's get these strips over the workbench and glue them up. So I'm going to use my domino for this. It's completely unnecessary, but it makes life a little easier, so I'm going to use it. It basically makes little capsule-shaped holes in the wood. zooming in to show you that shape there. And then you insert what's called a tenon, a floating tenon, into there. And what that does is, if I put these holes on either side, like this is one side, and then I'll put it on the other side that these panels are both glued together with, then it helps with alignment. It makes it so that when I put this panel together, it will be flat. And we'll see more about how that works when we actually go to the glue up. Let's finish this up and we'll start gluing it. I'm pretty proud of this little workbench upgrade I made. It's a roll of floor sheathing on the side that perfectly fits my workbench, so I can just cut off a piece to protect it from glue. A lot of the glue up is just going to be preparation. I need to make sure I'm really prepared. I have the clamps, I have the glue, I have everything ready. So here I am adding the glue. You can see the holes for the dominoes. We'll spread it out evenly, and then we'll put in those dominoes. Make sure they're in there tight, and then you can see that's kind of where they come into play. They kind of set a reference for both sides of the panel so that they can be at the same height and make sure that they're flat. There's definitely some urgency here because we don't want the glue to dry too quickly, but let's put it in the clamps. One thing I learned the hard way is I don't want all that excess glue drying on my board, so we'll make sure to scrape that off before it gets too dry. So we'll come back in 15-30 minutes and try to scrape it off once it's dry enough to be scraped and not get everywhere. If you've made it this far, I really appreciate you. Thanks for hanging out and making some drawer fronts with me. We'll just let this dry overnight, and then we'll cut it down to size another day. Thanks. Bye.